The night sky over the war zone was full of smoke and red fire. The ground shook again and again as the last explosions faded in the distance. Ethan Cross, a human engineer working for the Galactic Recovery Corps, slowly moved through the broken metal and dust. His scanner beeped softly, searching for any signs of life among the wreckage. He had seen many crash sites before, but this one felt different, colder, quieter, and strangely alive. The ship he found was not human. Its silver hull glowed faintly even while torn apart. Strange alien symbols pulsed across its surface like veins carrying light instead of blood. Ethan stared for a moment, both afraid and amazed. He spoke to himself softly. What in the galaxy happened here? His radio crackled, but there was only static. He was alone. The rest of his team was miles away. Ethan's suit light cut through the smoke, and then he heard it. A weak sound, almost like a whisper. It wasn't the wind. It was a voice. He followed the sound carefully, moving over twisted metal and broken panels. His boots crunched against pieces of glass that reflected the faint blue light. The voice came again, softer but clearer now. A word he didn't understand. Alien. Ethan turned a corner inside what remained of the ship's corridor, and then he froze. Lying there, surrounded by glowing shards and leaking plasma, was a woman, or something close to one. Her skin shimmered faintly like moonlight through water. Her hair floated slightly even in still air, as if gravity had forgotten her, and her chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. She was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Ethan knelt down beside her carefully. "Hey, can you hear me?" he said softly, not sure if she understood. Her eyelids fluttered open. Her eyes were unlike anything he'd ever seen, golden and deep like a sun trapped inside glass. Her voice was weak, broken through a small translator disc near her neck. "Help, please." Ethan looked at his scanner. It showed her vitals dropping fast. Blood, or something like it, was leaking from a deep wound on her shoulder. The liquid sparkled faintly, glowing blue. He hesitated. The galactic code was clear. No contact with alien royalty, no biological interference. But this wasn't a rule anymore. It was a question of life or death. He looked into her eyes again. She was afraid, but she still looked at him with something else. Hope. Ethan ripped open his med kit and pulled out the emergency bandage spray. "Stay still," he said, his voice firm now. "I'll try to stop the bleeding." The spray hissed as he covered her wound, sealing it temporarily. Her breathing slowed, but her body trembled from shock. Ethan checked her pulse. Too weak. Her hand, pale and glowing faintly, reached for him. She whispered again, "Please, don't leave." Ethan took her hand gently. "I'm not going anywhere." Outside, another explosion rumbled in the distance. Time was running out. He needed to call for a medical ship, but the radio was still dead. He looked around, trying to find anything that could stabilize her. Then he saw a strange device lying nearby. A small cylindrical injector with alien markings. He didn't understand it, but it looked like some kind of medical tool. He brought it closer, scanning it with his wrist pad. The translator blinked. Blood transfer capsule. Emergency use only. Ethan's heart stopped for a second. Was that what she needed? He looked at her again. She was fading. Her skin's light dimmed like a dying candle. The translator flickered and repeated the same broken word. "Blood." "Yours." Ethan froze. "You need my blood?" Her eyelids trembled and she nodded slowly. He stared at the injector, then at her wound. It was madness. Human blood could kill her, or worse. But doing nothing meant she would die for sure, and something deep in his chest refused to let that happen. "All right," he whispered. "Let's hope our blood isn't that different." He pressed the injector to his arm. A small sting, then a soft hum as it drew his blood. The chamber glowed red, mixing with her blue liquid as he placed it against her skin. The device clicked. For a moment, nothing happened. Then her entire body shivered. Light spread from the wound, moving across her veins like flowing rivers of energy. The glow turned purple, red and blue together. Her breathing steadied. The scanner beeped faster. Ethan stared, speechless. "You're..." "Healing." Her eyes opened again, brighter now. She looked at him, really looked, as if she could see inside his soul. A faint smile touched her lips. "Human, thank you," he exhaled, trembling from both fear and relief. "Don't thank me yet. We still need to get out of here." As he lifted her gently, the air around them pulsed. The ship's lights flickered and strange energy symbols on the walls began to glow stronger, reacting to her revival. Ethan didn't notice that the same faint light now traced across his own arm, where the injector had pierced him. Outside, the wind howled again. Ethan looked up at the sky. Somewhere beyond the stars. The Queen would soon learn what he had done, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. Ethan's hands trembled as he carried the wounded alien princess out of the broken corridor. The cold wind from the open sky rushed against his suit, and sparks still burned from the crashed alien ship. Every step felt heavy, not just from her weight but from what he had just done. He had shared his blood with a being from another world. The device on his wrist kept blinking red. His heart rate was too high, but something else flashed across the scanner. Strange readings he had never seen before. His blood was no longer fully human. A soft violet glow traced through his veins beneath his skin. He shook his head, whispering, "Stay focused, Ethan. She's alive. That's what matters." The princess was barely conscious. Her skin still glowed faintly, and every breath sounded like it came from deep underwater. He found a small shelter under a collapsed metal wing and laid her down gently. He tore open a thermal blanket, wrapping it around her. For a moment she looked peaceful, but then her body jolted. A sudden surge of light pulsed through her chest and her eyes flew open, golden and sharp. Ethan backed up, startled. The air shimmered. The earth beneath her cracked slightly as if her energy was waking the ship itself. Her voice came through the translator again, trembling but stronger. "Your blood. It changed me." Ethan blinked. "Changed you? What do you mean?" Her hand touched her shoulder where he had placed the injector. A faint purple mark glowed there, not like a wound but like a symbol shifting gently under her skin. "My body rejected all medicine, all plasma, but your blood accepted me. It listens." Ethan frowned. "That's impossible." She smiled weakly. "Maybe for humans. Not for me." He didn't understand, but deep inside he felt something too. A strange connection, a faint pull in his chest like an invisible thread tied between them. When she breathed, his heartbeat shifted slightly. When she blinked, a pulse of energy flickered in his vision. He sat beside her, confused and amazed. "Who are you?" he finally asked. She hesitated. "Seraphine, daughter of Queen Aralis, heir to the Luminara Empire." Ethan froze. He had heard that name before. The most powerful alien empire in the Orion Belt. The very same empire that had fought humanity for years. And now their princess was lying beside him, alive because of his blood. "Your royalty," he whispered. Her golden eyes met his. "Does that frighten you?" He shook his head slowly. "Only because it means they'll come looking for you." As if answering his words, a loud boom echoed across the night sky. A search drone zipped through the smoke above them, scanning the wreck. Ethan cursed under his breath. Too late. He pulled her closer, hiding her under the metal wing. The scanner beam passed just meters away from them. He could feel her trembling, her breath soft against his arm. The connection between them pulsed again, this time stronger. Ethan's wrist pad flickered suddenly. The readings went wild. Twin life signals synced perfectly. Hers and his, he swallowed hard. "Seraphine, our vitals, they're linked." She turned to him, her eyes wide with realization. "It is the blood bond. What's that supposed to mean?" Her gaze softened. "It's something that happens once in 1,000 generations. When two bloodlines, alien and human, fuse by choice, not by force. It creates a link, life shared between two hearts." Ethan stared at her, speechless. "You're saying if you die..." "I die," she finished softly. "You die too." The silence between them was heavy. The drone's sound faded into the distance. Ethan rubbed his face. "Well, that's just perfect." He looked at her again and sighed. "Then I guess I'll make sure we both stay alive." A small smile touched her lips. "You are strange human." "I've been called worse," he said with a small grin. But before they could say more, a sharp noise echoed. Metal boots. Soldiers. Ethan's pulse quickened. Through the cracks in the wreckage, he saw dark shapes moving. They were Luminara guards and her people, armed and furious. Seraphine tried to rise, but her body was still weak. "They think you hurt me," she whispered. "They'll kill you." Ethan looked around quickly, finding an old escape pod half buried nearby. "Not today," he muttered. He lifted her again, though his muscles screamed in protest. The strange energy from the bond surged through him, giving him just enough strength. He pushed toward the pod, ducking under the fallen metal beams as plasma blasts burned the ground behind them. He managed to get inside, sealing the hatch. The pod systems flickered, half dead but still functional. He slammed the power switch and the small craft rumbled as it came alive. Outside, the soldiers shouted. The Queen's insignia glowed on their armor. One raised his weapon. But the pod launched before he could fire. Ethan gripped the controls, breathing hard as the stars spun around them. You might want to hold on. Seraphine smiled faintly, eyes closing again. Your blood. It protects us both. Ethan didn't know what she meant, but as the pod escaped the battlefield, a strange calm filled him. The link between them glowed like a warm light in his chest. He glanced at her sleeping face and whispered, You're safe now, Princess. I don't know what's happening to us, but I'll figure it out. Far behind them, the Queen's fleet received a signal. The Princess lives, but a human has her. And for the first time in centuries, the Luminara Queen felt something she had never felt before. Fear. In the royal palace of Luminara, light flowed like water. The throne room was made of crystal and metal that sang softly with energy. At its center sat Queen Auralis, ruler of the empire, her golden armor reflecting the endless glow of the twin suns. Her eyes, bright and cold, were focused on the holographic display before her. The image of her daughter, Princess Seraphine, alive. But beside her image was something that made the Queen's heart twist with fury. A human. How? She whispered, her voice trembling with rage. Does a human touch royal blood? Around her, the royal advisor stood silent. The commander of the royal guard bowed low. Your Majesty, the distress beacon was activated moments before we arrived. The human must have interfered with the royal vessel. Interfered? The Queen's tone sharpened. He shared his blood with her. The entire hall fell silent. Even the glowing walls seemed to dim. No one dared to breathe as the Queen rose from her throne. Her golden robes flowed behind her like fire. Bring them both, she said coldly. Alive. The human will face judgment before the throne. Far away inside the stolen escape pod, Ethan didn't know that an entire empire now wanted him dead. He was focused on keeping Seraphine alive. Her breathing was steady now, but her skin pulsed with strange lights and the faint connection between them grew stronger with every moment. He could feel her heartbeat echo inside his chest. When she stirred, his pulse quickened. When she calmed, his own breath slowed. It was as if their bodies had become one rhythm. He checked the radar, red dots closing fast. Damn, he muttered. They're tracking us. Seraphine opened her eyes weakly. You should have left me. Ethan glanced at her, annoyed and worried. Yeah, well, not really my thing. You're stuck with me now. Her lips curved slightly. You don't understand what you've done. My mother will see this as blasphemy. He frowned. I saved your life. To her, you polluted the royal bloodline, she whispered. Ethan sighed. Then let her be angry. I'm not apologizing for saving someone. Before she could answer, the ship jolted violently. A plasma beam grazed their hull. Ethan cursed and grabbed the controls, diving the pod toward a nearby moon. The gray surface rushed up to meet them. Back in the palace, Queen Auralis stood before the ancient shrine of the celestial lineage, where the royal blood was said to have come from the gods themselves. Her hands trembled as she placed them on the glowing altar. The prophecy warned us, she murmured to herself. When human blood touches divine veins, a bridge is made. Her high priest bowed beside her. My queen, it may be fate. Fate. She turned sharply, eyes blazing. No, it is corruption. That human will undo everything we are. If the bond completes, she will no longer be purely Luminara. The priest hesitated. And yet, Your Majesty, her life returned because of him. The queen's expression darkened. Then I will take back what belongs to me and erase the mistake. She raised her hand. Send the purifiers. I want the human alive, long enough to break the bond. Ethan's pod crash-landed on the moon's surface with a hard jolt. Alarm screamed as smoke filled the cabin. He coughed and kicked open the hatch, pulling Seraphine out into the cold dust. Stay with me, he said, helping her sit up. Her golden eyes flickered with fear. They're coming, she whispered. My mother's soldiers. You can't fight them. Ethan looked at the distant horizon where faint lights were already descending. Maybe not. But I can run. She tried to stand but stumbled. He caught her, his hands glowing faintly where they touched her. For a moment, a wave of warmth flowed through both of them. The bond pulsed stronger, and the wound on her shoulder closed completely. She stared at him, shocked.
You healed me.
Again. Ethan looked at his hand, just as surprised. That wasn't me. Before they could speak more, the sound of ships filled the air. Energy blasts hit the ground around them. Ethan shielded Seraphine and ran toward a canyon ahead. The air smelled of burnt dust and ozone. The Queen's soldiers landed behind them, shouting in the alien tongue. One of them raised his weapon, but the blast curved mid-air, bending away from Ethan like invisible force fields protected him. Seraphine gasped. Your blood. It's awakening. They ran deeper into the canyon as the bond between them burned brighter. Back in the palace, Queen Oralis felt the tremor in her bloodline. She turned to the stars and clenched her fists. This human dares to merge with divine blood, she hissed. He will bring war upon us all. Her crown's lights flared and her voice echoed through the grand hall. Find him. Find the human who carries my daughter's light, and bring me his heart. The grand palace of Luminara stood like a mountain of gold and glass under the twin suns. The people had gathered in silence, their glowing eyes turned toward the royal court. Word had spread across the empire. The human who touched the royal blood had been captured. Chains of silver light bound Ethan's wrists as soldiers led him through the great crystal hall. The floor shone beneath his boots, reflecting his tired face. His body ached from the fight on the moon, but worse than pain was the pull in his chest. He could feel Seraphine's fear. She was here, somewhere close. At the far end of the hall sat Queen Oralis, the ruler of 1,000 worlds. Her throne floated on energy streams, her crown burning brighter than any star. Her eyes were cold fire as she looked at the human who dared to mix his blood with her daughter's. Ethan stopped at the foot of the stairs. The guards forced him to kneel. The Queen's voice filled the room like thunder. Human, she said slowly. You stand accused of defiling royal blood. For that crime there can be no mercy. Ethan raised his head. His voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. I didn't defile anything. I saved her life, the crowd murmured in disbelief. One soldier stepped forward and struck Ethan across the face, but the Queen lifted her hand. Silence fell again. Saved her life? She repeated, her tone sharp with disbelief. You claim your blood, mortal blood, could heal what our medicine could not? Ethan met her gaze. All I know is she was dying. I couldn't just watch. For a long moment, the Queen stared at him. Something in his voice reminded her of someone, her late king, perhaps, the man who once believed compassion was strength. But she buried that thought quickly. Bring the princess, she commanded. 2 guards entered, carrying Seraphine. Though weak, she still carried an aura that made the entire court bow their heads. Her golden eyes searched the room until they met Ethan's. For a second, time stopped. The energy between them flared, a soft pulse of violet light running across both their veins. Gasps filled the room. The glow spread from Ethan's skin to hers, forming a bridge of light between their hearts. The Queen's breath caught. The blood bond, whispered one of the advisors. It's real. Ethan didn't understand what they meant, but the Queen's face turned pale with anger. Stop this, she ordered. Separate them. A guard stepped forward, grabbing Ethan's arm, and screamed. A surge of energy threw him back, his armor sparking. The air trembled as the purple glow intensified. Symbols formed in the air. Ancient runes no one had seen for centuries. Seraphine's voice was soft but steady. Mother, you cannot fight it. The prophecy has begun. Silence, the Queen shouted. You've been poisoned by this creature's blood. Ethan's chains began to melt away, dissolving into pure light. He looked down, shocked. The strange power wasn't his doing, but he could feel it flowing from the bond. Half human courage, half alien energy. I didn't ask for this, he said quietly, but maybe it happened for a reason. The Queen rose from her throne, her armor gleaming like a sunburst. A reason? She said bitterly. Your kind brought war, pollution, destruction. And now you dare claim fate has chosen you. Ethan stood tall, his voice echoing across the chamber. Fate didn't choose me. I chose to save someone when no one else would. The crowd stirred. Some of the younger guards looked uncertain. Even the Queen's high priest lowered his head. Then Seraphine stepped forward, supported by Ethan's arm. "Mother," she said softly, "I felt his blood in mine. It carries no hatred, no greed. Only life," her words struck deep. The queen looked at her daughter, alive, radiant, and somehow whole. The energy around them began to calm, forming a soft glow instead of wild light. The queen's heart wavered for the first time, but pride was an old enemy. "If what you say is true," the queen said coldly, "then let the gods decide." She raised her staff high, and a bright beam of light struck the ground. The energy formed a glowing circle, a trial of purity, an ancient ritual meant to test divine claims. "Step into the circle, human," she commanded. "If the bond is false, your blood will burn. If it is true, the gods will show mercy." Ethan glanced at Seraphine. She shook her head in fear. "You could die," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Then let's see if your gods like me." He stepped into the circle. Instantly, light surrounded him, wrapping around his body like fire. Pain shot through his veins, but he didn't scream. The bond pulsed again. Seraphine cried out, clutching her chest, and then something miraculous happened. The fire turned into light. The ancient runes on the palace walls lit up one by one. The air filled with a sound like singing. A symbol appeared above Ethan's head, the mark of unity known only in old legends. The queen gasped. "That mark." The high priest fell to his knees. "He bears the seal of the Starborn, the one who bridges worlds." Silence filled the hall. The queen's expression softened, disbelief overtaking her fury. She stepped down from the throne and looked closely at the glowing human before her. For the first time, she spoke not as a ruler, but as a mother. "What are you?" Ethan looked at her, exhausted but calm. "Just a man who couldn't let her die." The queen lowered her staff. Her eyes glimmered with something new, respect and fear. "The gods have spoken," she whispered. "Perhaps the human blood is not as weak as we believed." The golden city of Luminera had not glowed like this in centuries. For years, its sacred towers had dimmed, the energy cores weakening as if the gods themselves had turned away. But now light was returning slowly, steadily, flowing through the crystal veins of the capital like blood through a living heart. And it all began the moment Ethan Cross stepped into the Queen's court. After the trial, he was no longer treated as a criminal. The Queen had ordered that he be watched but not harmed. Her daughter's life and the strange power that came from his blood had forced her to pause her fury. Yet she could not bring herself to accept what she had seen. A human, a simple, fragile being, had awakened something sacred in her empire. Ethan sat in a tall chamber surrounded by shimmering glass walls. The alien architecture hummed softly, reacting to his presence. Even when he moved his hand, the light around him rippled, responding as though it knew him. Seraphine sat across from him, her long hair flowing like molten silver. The glow beneath her skin had deepened, but it wasn't just her. Ethan's veins still faintly pulsed with violet light. "This power," he said quietly, "it doesn't belong to me." Seraphine smiled gently. "It belongs to both of us now." He frowned. "You really believe this blood bond is divine?" She nodded. "It's more than a legend. The ancients believed that when two souls from different worlds share blood willingly, they awaken the star core, the living energy that connects all life." Ethan stared out the window. The city below was slowly coming alive. "So that's why everything's lighting up?" "Yes," she said softly. "For hundreds of years our empire has been fading. We relied on machines, not spirit. But your blood..." She hesitated, then looked at him with awe. "It's pure energy, raw, fearless. It stirs the star core again." Ethan laughed under his breath. "Never thought I'd fix an alien power grid with my veins." Seraphine smiled faintly, but her expression turned serious. "My mother is afraid. Not because of you, but because the prophecy is real." "What prophecy?" he asked. "That one day a bridge would rise between mortal and divine blood. That bridge would bring both creation and destruction. If used with love, it would heal the galaxy. If twisted by fear, it could end everything." Ethan's jaw tightened. "So she thinks I'm a weapon." Seraphine's silence was answer enough. In the royal shrine, Queen Auralis stood before the orb of Genesis, an ancient relic glowing brighter than it had in generations. Her priests bowed low, whispering prayers. "My queen," one said softly. The human's blood restored the orb's song. "This cannot be ignored." The queen's golden eyes reflected the light. He has power he does not understand. If it grows unchecked, it could destroy us all. But your majesty, the priest argued, perhaps the gods sent him. The prophecy calls him the Starborn. She turned sharply. The prophecy also says the bridge may collapse worlds. I will not risk my empire for one man's heartbeat. She lifted her hand. Prepare the celestial guard, watch him, study him, and if he becomes unstable, her voice darkened. End it. Back in the tower, Ethan was staring at his palms when the energy suddenly flared again. The lights of the chamber brightened until they were blinding. Seraphine gasped as symbols appeared in the air, ancient glyphs spinning in circles around him. What's happening? He shouted. The Star Core is answering you, Seraphine cried. It feels your fear. He tried to calm down, but the room shook violently. The walls began to hum, and outside the tower, beams of light shot into the sky, connecting the palace to every corner of the planet. Across the empire, engines restarted, crops began to bloom in the barren fields, and the dying energy cores reignited. The city cheered. The queen watched in silent disbelief. Ethan sank to his knees, exhausted. The light faded slowly until only a soft glow remained around him. Seraphine touched his shoulder gently. You did it. You awakened the core. He looked at her with tired eyes. I didn't do anything, it just responded. She smiled softly. That's what makes it a miracle. But deep beneath the palace, in the hidden halls where old secrets slept, something else stirred. The same energy that revived the city also reawakened the ancient guardians, the sentinels of purity, built long ago to destroy any who dared mix human and divine blood. Their eyes flickered to life, glowing red, and as their systems came online, a cold voice echoed through the depths. Blood anomaly detected. Purification protocol begin. Above, the queen stood at her window, watching her shining empire reborn under twin suns. But her smile faded as her sensors detected the reawakening below. The gods give with one hand, she whispered, and destroy with the other. Her gaze turned toward the chamber where Ethan and Seraphine rested. If he truly is divine, she murmured, then may he survive what comes next. The palace trembled before dawn. What began as a gentle hum in the lowest chambers turned into a roar that shook the golden spires of Luminara. Servants ran through glowing halls, shouting warnings. Alarms echoed in the distance, shrill, metallic, and cold. Ethan woke up instantly. The light in his veins flared bright purple. He could feel it. Danger pulsing in the air like static before a storm. Beside him, Seraphine gasped as the energy link between them surged painfully, like two hearts beating out of rhythm. What's happening? He asked. Seraphine's eyes widened. The sentinels. They've awakened. Ethan frowned.
The what now?
They are ancient machines, she said, trembling. Created by my ancestors to destroy anything that threatens the purity of royal blood. And your blood? She looked at him in horror. It's their target. Before he could reply, the chamber door burst open. A blinding flash struck the wall where he stood a moment ago. Ethan grabbed Seraphine and dove behind the silver pillars. The room filled with the smell of burning metal. 3 towering figures stepped into the light, sentinels of purity. Their bodies were made of silver armor, but their eyes glowed blood red. Their voices were one, cold and merciless. Foreign blood detected. Eliminate. Ethan's pulse raced. I'm guessing they don't want to talk. Seraphine shook her head. They don't understand mercy. Energy bolts flew across the room, shattering walls. Ethan shielded Seraphine instinctively, but as one bolt hit his arm, it didn't burn, it absorbed. The bond reacted again, wrapping his skin in a protective glow. The light expanded, forming a shield around both of them. Seraphine looked at him in shock. Your blood is fighting back, Ethan gritted his teeth. Then let's see how long it can hold. He pushed forward, raising his hand as another blast came. The shield grew stronger, deflecting the energy. The sentinels hesitated for a split second, scanning him. Human anomaly. Power unstable, neutralize. Ethan grabbed a fallen energy staff from the ground. The weapon hummed, but somehow his blood synced with it. The purple glow fused into the weapon, and when he swung, it cut through a sentinel's chest like lightning. Sparks scattered as the machine collapsed in silence. The remaining sentinels advanced. Ethan stood firm. If you want her, you'll have to go through me. But before they could strike again, the chamber's ceiling exploded. A group of royal guards descended, led by Queen Oralis herself. She was in full armor, eyes blazing. Her staff glowed with white energy. Enough, her voice boomed. This is my daughter's chamber, not a battlefield. The sentinels froze, recognizing their maker's command authority. The queen looked between Ethan and Seraphine, the human breathing hard, still glowing faintly. The princess clutching his arm. Her gaze softened, but only for a moment. You've awakened things you cannot control, human. The sentinels are bound by sacred code. They will not stop. Ethan looked around at the chaos. Then shut them down. The queen's eyes darkened. If I could, I would. But they obey only one law, destroy corruption. To them, you are that corruption. Ethan's hand tightened on the energy staff. Then I'll stop them myself. Seraphine turned to him, her voice breaking. If you fight them, the bond will drain your life. The core takes energy from both of us. I know, he said quietly. That's why you're going to live. Before she could answer, the ground shook again. More sentinels broke through the palace walls, 10, 20, maybe more. The queen's guards fell back, shouting. Ethan looked at Seraphine, memorizing her face. You once told me our bond connects life and spirit, maybe. If I give it everything, it can save your world. Tears filled her eyes. Ethan, no! He smiled softly. You called it a miracle once. Let's make it one. He stepped forward into the storm. The sentinels charged, their beams converging on him. The queen shouted for her guards to stand back, but Ethan was already glowing brighter than the suns above. The bond inside him burned like fire and light together. The pain was unbearable, but he didn't stop. Every heartbeat sent energy into the air, forming waves of violet light that struck the sentinels, freezing them mid-step. Their systems screamed as their cores overloaded. The queen stared, speechless. He's absorbing the core itself, Ethan shouted through the roar. Tell her, I'm not afraid. The light exploded outward, a giant pulse that swept across the city. Every sentinel disintegrated into dust. The ancient machines were gone and silence returned. Seraphine fell to her knees, crying out his name. When the light faded, Ethan was lying at the center of the ruined hall, his body still glowing faintly. The queen walked closer, awe and grief on her face. He sacrificed himself. Seraphine held his hand, her tears glowing as they fell on his skin. No, he's still warm. A gentle hum filled the room. The purple light pulsed once more beneath his chest, then spread outward, weaving through the walls, the sky, the city. The entire planet shimmered like a living star. The queen looked up in wonder. The star core is reborn. She knelt beside her daughter, voice soft with something she had never known before, humility. Your human saved us all. Seraphine pressed her forehead against Ethan's. He didn't just save us, Mother. He became part of us. The twin suns rose slowly over the shining city of Luminara. What was once scarred by centuries of war now glowed with peace. The palace walls, cracked and burned from the battle, shimmered with living light as if the planet itself was breathing again. At the center of the grand courtyard lay a crystal dais surrounded by streams of flowing energy, the heart of the star core. And upon it, motionless but radiant, rested Ethan Cross. His body no longer looked entirely human. His veins glowed softly with purple and gold light, his skin almost transparent beneath the radiance that pulsed like starlight. He seemed asleep, but every few seconds the entire palace echoed with his heartbeat. The sound traveled through the ground, across cities, through the oceans, the rhythm of life itself. Seraphine stood beside him, dressed not as a princess now, but as a guardian. Her eyes shone with both pride and sorrow. She placed her hand gently on his chest, and the energy responded to her touch, rippling outward in waves. His heart beats with ours, she whispered. He is the bridge between human and divine. Behind her, Queen Auralis approached slowly. Gone was her golden armor. She wore simple robes now, her crown dimmed to a faint light. The once proud ruler who saw humanity as filth now walked barefoot to kneel beside the human who had saved her empire. She looked at her daughter with quiet disbelief. He should be dead. No mortal could survive what he did. Seraphine smiled sadly. He isn't mortal anymore. The core chose him. The queen frowned softly. Chose him? Seraphine nodded. When he gave his blood to me, he didn't just share life. He gave the star core a reason to awaken. The ancient energy saw his heart, his courage, his compassion, and made him its vessel. The queen gazed at Ethan's still form. For the first time she saw not weakness but divinity. A human became the soul of our world, she said quietly. I called him corruption, and he became our salvation. Suddenly, the chamber trembled. A pulse of energy rippled from Ethan's body, spreading across the horizon. The city lights flared brighter. The once barren lands beyond Luminara's gates bloomed with color. Rivers began to flow again, forests shimmered, and life returned to planets long dead. The priests watching from the balcony fell to their knees, tears glowing on their faces. "The Starborn lives," one whispered. "The bridge between species is complete." Ethan's eyes opened slowly. The world was brighter than before, filled with soft voices, memories, and light. He blinked and found Seraphine's face hovering above his. Her eyes were wet, her hands trembling. "You're awake," she whispered. He smiled faintly, his voice soft and echoing as if it came from the stars themselves. "Did I miss anything?" Seraphine laughed through tears. "Only the part where you became a god." He frowned, looking at his hands. They glowed faintly, threads of energy running like rivers under his skin. "I'm not a god," he said quietly. "Just a man who didn't want you to die." The queen stepped forward slowly, her voice trembling. "Then why do you carry the light of the gods, human?" Ethan turned his gaze toward her. "Maybe because the gods got tired of waiting for someone to do the right thing." The queen lowered her head, humbled. "You have changed us all. My people, my world, and me. I once ruled through fear. Now I kneel before faith." And she did. The great Queen Oralis, ruler of 1,000 systems, knelt before the human mechanic who had once been called unworthy. Ethan's glow brightened, and the chains of old hatred that had divided species for ages began to fade. Across the galaxy, alien and human fleets stopped fighting. Messages were sent through space, not of war but of peace. The light that came from Luminara reached every corner of known existence, whispering one truth: human blood had healed the stars. Days passed. The bond between Ethan and Seraphine no longer hurt. It simply was. They could feel each other's hearts no matter the distance. The star core that pulsed beneath the city responded to their emotions, calm when they were at peace, alive when they laughed. One evening, as the sun set in golden fire, Seraphine stood with him on the balcony overlooking the glowing world. "Do you ever wish you could go home?" she asked softly. Ethan looked toward the stars, toward the blue speck that once held his life. "Maybe," he said, "but home isn't always where you're born. Sometimes it's where your blood decides to stay." She smiled, tears shining like tiny stars. "Then this world is your home now." He nodded. "Ours." In the days that followed, temples were built not to worship Ethan as a god, but to honor the unity his sacrifice created. The queen declared a new age, the era of connection, where humans and Luminara would share knowledge, art, and life. At the heart of the great palace, the star core glowed endlessly, neither human nor alien, but both. And at its center, Ethan and Seraphine walked side by side, symbols of a galaxy reborn. When the stars shone brightest, their joined light illuminated entire worlds. The people whispered his name not as a warrior or a ruler, but as something simpler, the man who shared his blood and healed the universe. And somewhere beyond the endless stars, the gods, if they still watched, smiled.